In today's video, we're going to practice translating English sentences into Spanish. I'll show you the sentence in English first, give you a moment to say it in Spanish, and then I'll reveal the correct Spanish sentence on the screen. We'll start with daily activities. How do you say in Spanish, I get up at 7 a.m.? I get up is me levanto. Me levanto. At 7 a.m. a las 7 a.m. Me levanto a las 7 a.m. Me levanto a las 7 a.m. And how would you say I eat eggs and bread in Spanish? So here we're assuming this is for breakfast. So in Spanish, I eat translates into desayuno. Desayuno, eggs and bread, huevos y pan. Desayuno, huevos y pan. In Spanish, we have specific verbs to say eat breakfast, eat lunch, eat dinner. Desayunar, almorzar, cenar. And in English, we have to use eat or have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So in this case, we can use desayuno, huevos y pan. How would you say in Spanish, I go to work? I go is voy. Voy. To work. Al trabajo. Voy al trabajo. Voy al trabajo. And how would you say I work at the office in Spanish? I work is trabajo. Trabajo. We can technically use yo trabajo, but in Spanish, the pronouns are not needed because the verbs are conjugated to the person and tense. At the office is en la oficina. Trabajo en la oficina. Trabajo en la oficina. And how would you say in Spanish, I come back home? I come back in Spanish is actually just one word and it means vuelvo. Vuelvo or yo vuelvo. Home a casa. Vuelvo a casa. Vuelvo a casa. And how would you say I have dinner with my family? I have dinner is ceno. Ceno. It comes from the verb cenar, to have dinner or to eat dinner. With my family, con mi familia. Ceno con mi familia. Ceno con mi familia. Let's move on to feelings and emotions. How do you say in Spanish, I'm happy? Estoy feliz. Estoy feliz. Very straightforward. How about she is tired? Ella está cansada. Ella está cansada. For the third person singular, we do tend to use the pronouns because the verb are conjugated the same for she, he, and the formal you. So if you want to be very specific, you do want to use the pronoun. And how would you say they are angry in Spanish? If they is for a male or mixed group, then you would say ellos están enojados. Ellos están enojados. If they means an all-female group, then you use ellas. Ellas están enojadas. Ellas están enojadas. Unlike in English, in Spanish, the adjectives have to match gender and number. So here we see enojados and enojadas. They're both in plural, but one is for an all-male group or a mixed gender group, and then enojadas is for an all-female group. A similar thing happens with we are excited. How would you say that in Spanish? So for an all-male group or a mixed gender group, we use Nosotros estamos emocionados. Nosotros estamos emocionados. And you can drop the pronoun as well. You can just say estamos emocionados. If it's an all-female group, you would use nosotras estamos emocionadas. Nosotras estamos emocionadas. And again, you can drop the pronoun and just say estamos emocionadas. But the adjective will give you more information about the gender and about the number of people. And in Spanish, we tend to use estar with the emotions and feelings because they are temporary. How would you say today is very cold? Today is hoy. Hoy. In Spanish, for is, when we're talking about the weather, we can use hace. Hace. In Mexico, we also use está. So we could say hoy hace or hoy está. But depending on which one you use, you have to change very. So we use mucho with hace. Hoy hace mucho and cold is frío. Hoy hace mucho frío. If I say hoy está, I can't use mucho. We have to use muy. Hoy está muy frío. Hoy está muy frío. So in Mexico, both sentences are acceptable. I know in Spain and other countries, you would use hoy hace mucho frío. But just keep in mind that very needs to change based on which verb you use. All right, how would you say in Spanish, I feel sick? I feel is me siento. Me siento, we use the reflexive pronoun. You could technically use yo at the beginning if you need to. Yo me siento. And then sick is enferma for a female speaker or enfermo for a male. Me siento enferma. Me siento enfermo. All right, let's move on to needs and wants. How would you say in Spanish, I want to eat? I want is quiero. Quiero. Or yo quiero, if you add the pronoun. To eat, comer. Quiero comer. Quiero comer. So here we have to eat as an infinitive verb in English. In Spanish, the infinitive verbs end in er, like comer, or, like viajar, or or, like vivir. And the rules are kind of similar like in English. If you already used a verb first, then you're gonna use the second one in its infinitive form. So, quiero comer. How would you say I would like to travel in Spanish? I would like is me gustaría. Me gustaría. In Spanish, we don't have the same modal verbs like in English. For the conditional, we have an actual word depending on the tense and person. And then here, we kind of follow the same rules as gustar. And I already have some videos like that when we use the indirect object pronoun, me gustaría. To travel is viajar. Me gustaría viajar. Me gustaría viajar. So the structure changes a lot in Spanish with this type of verbs. How would you say I need to drink water? Necesito is I need. To drink, beber. And water, agua. Necesito beber agua. Necesito beber agua. And how would you say she wants to learn Spanish? She wants is ella quiere. Ella quiere. To learn, aprender. Aprender. And then Spanish, español. Ella quiere aprender español. Ella quiere aprender español. And how would you say in Spanish, they want to go to the park? They want is Quieren. Quieren. To go, ir. Ir and to the park. Al parque. Al parque. Al is a contraction. There are not that many contractions in Spanish, but it technically means a él. But because there are two vowels, both words turn into al parque. Quieren ir al parque. Quieren ir al parque. Before we saw I want to eat, and that one was quiero comer. So I want, quiero. They want, quieren. And in Spanish, all verbs must be conjugated to the correct person and tense. We could also add the pronouns if needed. Ellos quieren ir al parque. Or ellas quieren ir al parque. The next sentence is I need to find my keys. How would you say that in Spanish? I need is necesito. Necesito. To find, encontrar. Encontrar. And my keys, mis llaves. Mis llaves. Necesito encontrar mis llaves. Necesito encontrar mis llaves. In the last section, we're going to take a look at questions and negations. How would you say in Spanish, how are you? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? So how is ¿cómo? And are you is estás. Technically, we could say estás tú, are you. But again, we can omit the pronoun. ¿Cómo estás? And how would you ask, who is she? Who is quién? Is, es, and she, ella. ¿Quién es ella? ¿Quién es ella? The next question is, where's the bathroom? How would you say that in Spanish? Where, ¿dónde? Is, está. Está. And the bathroom, el baño. ¿Dónde está el baño? ¿Dónde está el baño? So here, if you want to ask, where's the bank? We just change the ending. ¿Dónde está el banco? Where's the store? ¿Dónde está la tienda? So with masculine nouns, we use el. With feminine nouns, we use la. All right, the next sentence is, I'm not tired. How would you say that in Spanish? We can use no estoy cansado. No estoy cansado. If you're a male speaker, for a female speaker, no estoy cansada. No estoy cansada. The adjective has to match the gender. We could also use the personal pronouns at the beginning. Yo no estoy cansado. Yo no estoy cansada. And how would you say they're not at home? Well, they could be ellos or ellas. So we'll use ellos. Or not, no están. So in Spanish, no goes before the verb. No están. At home, en casa. En casa. Ellos no están en casa. In English, we could also say they're not home. We could drop the at. In Spanish, we cannot do that. We have to add en. Ellos no están en casa. We could also drop the pronoun and just say no están en casa. The last sentence is I don't want to go to work. How would you say that in Spanish? It's very similar to what we saw before. We just add no before the main verb. No quiero. No quiero ir a trabajar. No quiero, I don't want, ir, to go, a trabajar, to work. No quiero ir a trabajar. We can add the pronoun and say yo no quiero ir a trabajar. But it's, again, not needed. No quiero ir a trabajar. In Spanish, we don't have the helping verbs don't, doesn't. They don't really exist. We just use no. So it's more straightforward to create the negative sentences. I truly hope this was helpful, and to keep learning Spanish, go watch this video next. Muchas gracias.